Well, if there's one thing that Disney's really good at, is that they know how to kill off their villains. Hey everyone, this is Rabbit Explain Animation Bliss, and welcome to my Animated Tops Corner on my Animated Top 10s list. Today's Animated Top 10s list that I'll be doing today would be my top 10 Disney villain deaths. And before I get into this video, here are a few words from the channel. Alright Animaniacs, now let's get on the social media train. Want to chat with us in 100 words or less? Then check out our Twitter account. Want to chat with us within a group? Then check out our Facebook account. Want to get the lowdown on everything dealing with animation on this channel? Then check all of the above. And now, we return to our regularly scheduled program. When it comes to Disney, not only are they well known for doing a lot of fantastic animated films, but they're also well known for putting out some of the most iconic villains onto cinema. And since April is Disney month here over at Animation Bliss, I thought that we should do a video where I list off my top 10 Disney villain deaths. So before we get into this video, here are a few warnings. Number 1. This list is based off of my personal opinion, so there may be some Disney villain deaths on this list that you guys might not agree with, or there might be some Disney villain deaths that are not on this list that you guys think should have been on this list. And number 2, there will be some massive spoilers in this video, so if you have not watched any of the movies mentioned in this video, you might want to watch these movies first before watching this video. However, if you have already watched all of these movies and you want to hear my thoughts on this topic, then keep watching. So in this scene, when Gaston finds out that Belle has been with the Beast all this time, and then he discovers that Belle loves the Beast more than him, Gaston decides to go and invade the Beast's castle and tries to kill the Beast. It was then that Gaston ends up engaging in a massive fight with the Beast, and towards the end of their fight, the Beast ends up taking advantage of Gaston. And just as the Beast reunites with Belle, Gaston ends up stabbing the Beast in the back, killing him. But in doing so, Gaston ends up falling off the tower, and he ends up falling down below to his death. So this death is what you would call the Disney villain death, where the Disney villain basically falls to their death. And I have to say that this is one of the most intense deaths out of all of the Disney films I've seen, as we get to see Gaston fall to his death, and you get to hear screams as he falls off the tower. But what makes this death so interesting to me was that if you take a really close look at Gaston's eyes as he falls to his death, you notice that there's skulls in his eyes, and seeing those skulls in Gaston's eyes as he falls to his death really brings out the creepy nature of this death scene. So in this scene, Snow White's wicked stepmother, the Queen, ends up turning herself into a hag. And so she ends up going to the cottage of the 7 dwarfs, and she tries to give Snow White a poisoned apple. And when Snow White ends up taking a bite out of the apple, she ends up dying. And so the wicked queen ends up leaving the cottage, thinking that her work has been done. But then the 7 dwarfs find out what happened, and they end up chasing the queen up to a cliff. And the wicked queen tries to drop a boulder on the 7 dwarfs, but unfortunately a bolt of lightning strikes the queen, and she ends up falling off the cliff to her death. So this is another one of those Disney villain deaths where the villain falls to their death. And this is actually one of the earliest examples of that, as Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs is Disney's first feature film, or Disney's first animated feature film. And this is the scene that shows the Disney villain falling to their death, as it shows the Wicked Queen falling to her death as she is struck by lightning. And I just love the karmic nature of the scene, as the Queen tries to kill the 7 Dwarfs, but she ends up getting struck by lightning and she ends up dying herself. So that's what I really loved about this death scene. So in this scene, Rapunzel finds out that Mother Gothel has been lying to her all of these years, as it turns out that Mother Gothel has kidnapped Rapunzel when she was a little girl from her real parents. And when Rapunzel finds this out, she tries to leave Mother Gothel, but then Mother Gothel ends up tying up Rapunzel in chains. And when Eugene tries to come and save Rapunzel, Mother Gothel ends up stabbing Eugene in the back. And in order to save Eugene, Rapunzel decided to try to heal Eugene with her hair. But unfortunately, Eugene cuts off Rapunzel's hair, which causes Mother Gothel to age rapidly, since Rapunzel's hair was what was keeping Mother Gothel young. And Mother Gothel ends up tripping out of the tower, and she ends up disintegrating to death as she falls down the tower below. So I really love this Disney death, because even though it's another one of the Disney villains falling down to their deaths, this death scene is a little more intense because it has Mother Gothel actually disintegrating when she reaches the ground. Like, we don't really see her disintegrate on screen, but we do see how she just vanishes without a trace when she falls to the ground. And that's what I really loved about this death scene. And also the fact that this was after Mother Gothel had stabbed Eugene to death in such a graphic way made this death scene really stand out to me. So in this scene, the Horn King successfully gets the Black Cauldron, and he ends up calling up the undead army. But unfortunately for him, Gurgi, one of Taran's friends, ends up sacrificing himself so that way he could send the dead army back to the Black Cauldron. But because of this, the Black Cauldron ends up sucking up the dead army as well as the Horn King. And once the Black Cauldron sucks up the Horn King, the Black Cauldron ends up ripping off the skin from the Horn King, and the Horn King is sucked up into the Black Cauldron, never to be seen again. So I have to say that this is one of the most violent Disney villain deaths I have ever seen in any Disney film. The fact that the Horn King himself gets ripped to shreds when he gets sucked into the Black Cauldron was really shocking to me, because I never seen anything that graphic or violent in a Disney film, and it really did shock me when that happened. So in this scene, Dr. Facilier was trying to take Taina down to the underworld with him, or tried to take her soul. But unfortunately, Taina breaks the vial that Dr. Facilier was carrying around him that contained the souls of all the people that he took. And because he was trying to use the souls to pay the people on the other side back, when those souls get loose, the people on the other side ends up coming up to Dr. Facilier, and they ended up taking him down to the underworld. I have to say that this is one of the creepiest deaths I ever seen in any Disney film, as we get to see Dr. Facilier, the villain of The Princess and the Frog, get dragged down to the underworld by all of these creepy creatures that just came out of the ground, and they just came up and grabbed him because he didn't pay his debt to them. So I found this to be one of the creepiest deaths ever in any Disney film. So in this scene, Maleficent ends up turning to a dragon, where Prince Philip tries to free Aurora, who's in a sleeping spell, and he ends up fighting the dragon Maleficent. And it was during this scene that the fairies were able to give Prince Philip a sword that Prince Philip was able to use to stab Maleficent in the chest, and this ends up killing Maleficent in the end. This particular death scene is so high up on my list because it involves Maleficent herself being stabbed in the chest, and you get to see a lot of blood pour from her chest, which I have to say was really graphic for a Disney film. And trust me, this is not the first Disney villain who gets stabbed on this list. So let's keep going. So in this scene, Ursula ends up getting King Triton's Triton, and when her two pet eels ended up getting killed, Ursula flies into a rage, and she ends up transforming into a giant. And it was then that Ursula tried to kill Ariel and Prince Eric. And just as Ursula is about to kill Ariel, Prince Eric comes in with a ship, and he ends up stabbing Ursula in the stomach with the ship, and this ends up killing Ursula. So this is another violent death on this list because it involves, yet again, another Disney villain getting stabbed. And you have Ursula getting stabbed in the stomach, and then you have her being electrocuted to death at the same time. So I have to say that this is probably one of the most brutal deaths on this list, as it involves Ursula being stabbed first and then being electrocuted in the ocean. So in this scene, after Scar betrays the hyenas to Simba, he ends up getting into this fight with Simba after he tried to take over Pride Rock, and he ends up turning Pride Rock into a wasteland. So in this scene, Scar becomes king of Pride Rock, But because Scar's rule over Pride Rock was so bad, everybody ended up starving to death, and Scar was like mistreating everybody there until Simba comes back and he tries to take back Pride Rock from Scar. And it was then that Scar and Simba get into a fight with each other, and when it looks like that Scar was about to kill Simba, Simba ends up throwing Scar over the cliff. And when the hyenas come up to Scar, they end up killing Scar because Scar had betrayed the hyenas to Simba early on in the film. And you get to see the hyenas tear into Scar as the flames go up and burn them all to death. So this was definitely another violent death scene for me. Like, I would consider this death scene to be kind of karmic, because you see that Scar ends up betraying the hyenas to Simba earlier on, and now the hyenas end up coming up to Scar and kill him in return for betraying them. And I just found this death scene to be pretty karmic and also creepy at the same time, because while we don't really see Scar get eaten by the hyenas on screen, we do see the hyenas jump on Scar as the flames come up. So Scar not only gets eaten by the hyenas, but he also gets burned to death as well. And I have to say that this is one of the most karmic deaths on this list. So in this scene, after Quasimodo frees Esmeralda for being burned at the stake by Frollo, Frollo ends up chasing both Quasimodo and Esmeralda, and he tries to kill both Quasimodo and Esmeralda. And just as Frollo was that close to killing Quasimodo and Esmeralda as they were hanging on the ledge, the gargoyle that Frollo was standing on ends up breaking, and it was then that the gargoyle statue ends up breaking under Frollo's weight, and Frollo ends up falling into the lava down below. Now this was one of my all-time favorite deaths on this list, because Frollo was such a horrible character. Frollo is like my all-time favorite Disney villain, and I just love how ruthless he is and how calculating he is at the same time. And to see him get killed after all the damage he has done to everybody in Paris was really satisfying to see, especially since this death is considered like divine retribution, as Frollo seems to be stating that he was God in this scene. And then you have the gargoyle break under his weight and have him plummet to the lava down below. So it's kind of like the forces up above was telling Frollo, you know, you're going to end up dying because you were doing all of this damage to Paris and his people, so you're going to have to pay for that. And that's just what happened. Before we get into my number one Disney villain death, I would like to let everybody know that there are affiliate links in the description box below if you are interested in buying any of the movies that are mentioned or linked in this video. If you buy any of the movies mentioned in this video using the affiliate links in the description box below, I will receive a small commission that will help out with this channel. So please feel free to use any of the affiliate links down below if you are interested in adding any of these movies to your movie collection. So in this scene, just as Clayton was about to take the gorillas back to England with him, Tarzan, Jane, and the professor come to the rescue, and they ended up freeing all of the gorillas from Clayton's clutches. This enrages Clayton so much that he tries to go after Tarzan, and they go up into the trees. And while they're fighting in the trees, one of the vines ends up wrapping around Clayton's neck. And Tarzan was trying to tell Clayton, hey, there's a vine around your neck, don't fight me anymore. But Clayton wouldn't listen, and so Clayton ends up cutting one of the vines, and he ends up falling down below. And it turns out that the vine that was around his neck ended up choking him to death. Now this is my number one Disney villain death because of how violent and terrifying this death was. Like, this is probably the most infamous death in any of the Disney films I've seen because of just how shocking this death was. The fact that we actually see a Disney villain getting hung to death on screen was really shocking to see. And this is why this particular death scene was the number one death scene for me. So those are my top 10 Disney villain deaths. And I really enjoyed making this list because it was interesting seeing just how all of these Disney villains die and just seeing how brutal these deaths can get. And the thing that I really like about Disney as a whole is how they're able to handle the villain deaths. So I was really excited to make this list, and yeah, those are my top 10 Disney villain deaths. So that's it for my top 10 Disney villain deaths. And tell me in the comments down below, what were some of your favorite Disney villain deaths? And what were some of the most brutal or scary Disney villain deaths you have ever seen? Please let me know in the comments down below. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Rabbit's Ball Animation Bliss, and I'll see you guys later. Hey animation fans, like this video? If you want to see more animated content from this channel, then please hit that big old animated subscribe button so that you can get more awesome content from this channel.